Oh, hold on one second, Connor.
Media is an essential part of today's world. At the University of Illinois College of Media, our students are curious and creative, innovative and engaged, and they're charting a bold new course. Working with our esteemed faculty, students learn how to ask insightful questions, gather and analyze evidence, and tell a compelling story through words, images, and data. The College of Media at Illinois is an exciting and collaborative place to be. Students run news broadcasts and publish articles, shoot and edit cinematic videos and documentaries, and premiere them at our film festival, create strategic advertising campaigns for real-world clients, design virtual reality apps, and contribute to cutting-edge research. Through experiential learning, our students develop the diverse set of skills necessary to navigate the ever-changing media landscape. The College of Media prepares the next generation of leaders who will shape our fields and industries for decades to come.
Maddie and I, we've both been able to do so much with GMI, and really the only jobs we haven't been able to do have been the ones that each other's had.
That's true. Yeah, I haven't gotten to direct, and you haven't gotten to executive produce. Between the two of us, we've had every job on GMI. I think my favorite, besides being EP, is definitely doing tag along with Sammy St. Ledger, who is our special guest, also our co-producer. Sammy, how you doing?
Hello, I'm good.
Thanks so much for being here. We miss you too.
Yeah.
Maddie, why did you decide to start coming to GMI?
I was in the dining hall. I was at late night, if you know what that is. And Maddie Foster interviewed me to talk about net neutrality. And she was like, oh, if you're interested in being on TV or working on a TV show, come to this general meeting tomorrow at this place that you've never heard of that is at the very edge of campus. I just got on a bus and showed up at Richmond and was like, I want to be a part of this.
No way, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did not know that story.
I remember walking in and just that awkward, there's a ton of seniors. I'm like, oh, who do I talk to? And I just look and Maddie's right there. And I was like, I looked at her phone and I was like, I like your Hufflepuff pop socket. And I believe that's began the friendship.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I forgot about the Hufflepuff pop socket conversation. And Dan came into the picture once the class started, right?
I knew of Maddie, and Mariah was in that class too. I knew Mariah, and other than that, I really didn't know anyone else in the class. So I was like, oh, maybe I can, talk to Maddie about GMI since I've never really done anything with it before. When I started with it, I never thought that I would be this involved with it, and it's just turned into something that I really care about. I feel like, and you guys have been such a huge part of that. So thank you.
We were all very good friends, and
it's just
had too much time left. And I think that really made it so that we got to do it all.
It's sad that we're leaving you, Sammy, but I think we're leaving the show in really great hands with all the new anchors and all the new producers, and Connor taking over as EP. We'll be watching. That's all I have to say.
Good afternoon to everybody, and welcome to the IN Media Virtual Conference for Saturday. This is the 1 o'clock Central Conference, which really will give our current students, 2020 students, and those recent alums that are joining us today, an opportunity to hear from what I'm going to call the four musketeers today. They're all from the same class, about 8 years ago. They all are in different fields today, some in television, one in radio, but all really in touch with each other. And we also want to give you a feel, at least in this first session, what life is like on the other side of commencement. You know, what are the professional expectations versus what your professors expected versus what Ken expected, or anybody else expected in school. And then they're going to share with you some tips for navigating careers in this really unusual situation out there with COVID around. So that's really the goal and purpose of today. Again, my thanks to you for joining us either on YouTube Live today or on Zoom. Let me get around to introducing our panelists today. First up, I'm going to go in alphabetical order. Syra Anwer is with us today. And Syra, your background, I believe you were raised or went to high school in Galesburg, Illinois, came to the University of Illinois, and then I think, did you do Teach for America for a couple of years before you got into television?
I did.
And then your very first job was in balmy North Dakota, right?
Minot, North Dakota, almost.
But really balmy up there, right? It was nice.
Balmy. Yes, it was very balmy. I was like, is that a town name?
So you've gone from television in North Dakota to television in Miami, Florida. Did you bring your winter coat when you moved?
I did, actually. It's in a closet. It's collecting dust, but I brought it because you never know if you're going to take a trip to a colder climate. I haven't yet, but I have it just in case.
Okay, let me start with, tell us what you do now for WPLG TV in Miami, and tell us what you did in school that helped you get ready for the career path you took, and especially for the job you have today.
Yeah, so I'm a general assignment breaking news reporter in the Miami, Fort Lauderdale market. I'm also a fill-in anchor. I anchored this morning. So whenever someone calls in sick, I'll take over on the anchor desk. So yeah, and the breaking news of the day is basically what I'm covering. I don't have a specific beat, and there's a lot of breaking news in South Florida. Almost all of our reporters are general assignment, no matter what their level of experience is. So this is my third TV job. Before this, I was in Madison, Wisconsin, where I was also a general assignment reporter and the weekend anchor there. And then before that, like JP said, I was in Minot, anchoring and reporting. My first two markets, I was in MMJ, so I shot my own video, edited my own video, very rarely worked with a photographer, and that's how it was at U of I for our newscast. We shot our own video. Sometimes you would bring a friend with, and they would kind of help or watch the equipment if you had to go try to get an interview. So that, the editing especially, because the software that we used in college was the same at my first station. So a lot of how we put together news stories in my first market was how we put it together at U of I. We were still using tapes at U of I my senior year. Never had to use tapes, but as far as editing, very similar. MMJ editing, all of the, wide, medium, tight, varying of the shots, audio. Yeah, everything we did senior year was applicable to my very first news job. I feel like as you kind of gain more experience, you learn when and where you can kind of break those rules and the fundamentals that you learn in college. And that's kind of more encouraged the more experience you have. But yeah, especially the first 2 years out of college, I was very much using what we learned.
Are any other activities in school, Daily Illini, radio station? Did you write? Did you intern anywhere during your college years?
Yeah. So I did. I interned at, first I interned at a radio station in Paducah, Kentucky. And then the next summer, I interned at a TV station in Paducah. My parents moved there randomly when I was in college. That's why I was doing things in Paducah. And then summer after junior year, I interned at another TV station in the Quad Cities, which is on the Iowa and Illinois border. Yeah, so two TV stations and a radio station.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's turn to Bryce Jacobs. Bryce is currently a writer and producer at CNN, and you're in Atlanta, right, Bryce?
I am.
CNN is literally everywhere around the world. Your career path hasn't always been directed towards cable news, though. You started Help Me here for the NFL?
I did. I've been all over the place.
Yeah,
it took a while. I've always said that, I think the first 4 years after college are really kind of like another college, where you just figure out everything, you work through the kinks, and that's where you really figure out where you want to go and what you want to do in this industry. And because you just kind of have to hit the ground running and really take whatever opportunity you get at the beginning and go from there.
Tell us what you do now at CNN, and tell us what you did in school that got you ready for the career path you took.
Oh, totally. So right now I'm a writer and producer for CNN Newsroom with Poppy Harlow and Jim Sciutto. It is every day, Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 a.m. Central Time. So I am basically a segment producer and writer for them. Every day I'll get a topic or an interview or an angle that it's my focus for the day. So whatever topics we hit on that throughout the day, it's my job to write the introductions, help write the questions for our guests, come up with banners, make sure we have the appropriate video elements and full screens, communicating with anchors and reporters to make sure that they have everything that they need for their hits. So a lot of things I've been focused on, especially because right now we're in 24/7 coronavirus coverage. I've been on a lot of our interviews. So our interviews with our doctors, our medical experts. I got to interview Mark Cuban and Gary Kelly, CEO of Southwest Airlines this week. So usually interviewing major CEOs or corporate doctors to just kind of get their assessment and understanding what's going on now. So that's specifically as to the current situation, what I do. How I got there is a whole nother story. I started in sports. Spencer and I have been on the sports path together since the first week of freshman year of college together. I produced Illini Drive at 5 with him, did Big Ten Network, broadcasting, was an on-air reporter for Daily Illini, and I was also a manager for the Illinois basketball team. So I was zeroed in on sports from the beginning.
And that's what led you to the NFL job?
And that led me to the NFL job, where I was actually lucky enough to work with a fellow Illini from our class, Heather Pink. And we were both producers and editors for a fantasy football show. And I did produced a Sirius XM show on fantasy football for about a year before moving to East Lansing, Michigan, where I produced and co-hosted a sports talk show for about 6 months. At that point, I really kind of needed something different. Sports wasn't giving me enough. I wanted some more diversity. I also wanted to be closer to home, from Illinois, from Northwestern Illinois in Sterling. So I started looking at jobs in Chicago, whether it was sports or not. And I got a job as a field producer at the ABC station there, where I was there for a year and a half, was a writer for 3 years at NBC Chicago and a producer on weekends before I made the leap to CNN. So I kind of, like I said, those first few years was just kind of testing the waters, learning everything I could about the industry, from radio to TV to sports to news. And then I just was lucky and found my path here in Atlanta.
Keep in mind, everybody, that we will be asking you for tips that you're going to be sharing with current students in terms of, should they use all of their versatility in terms of multimedia writing, or should they put on blinders and go, I just want to be a reporter? We'll talk about that a little bit. Let's move to Matthew Mershon, who is a multimedia journalist with Spectrum News. For those of you unfamiliar with Spectrum, it is a cable news operation associated with Charter Communications and Spectrum. Matt joins us today from Austin. And Matt, if I remember right, I don't know what you did in college in terms of media, but you started your career in Rockford, Illinois. Is that correct?
Yeah, I started in Rockford. So I did Daily Illini. I did the 5 o'clock news on WPGU. I remember doing that. And then Spencer and Bryce would come in after and do their show. But other than that, I did obviously classes. TV2 was I think that's what I was confused. I'm not sure if we all had the same TV2 class or not, but after that, during school, I was working at WCIA. I interned there for a couple years. They had launched at the time CI Living, which I can't believe is actually still on the air. And so I helped with that, and I was a PA there, so I could at least get paid to do that, because internships, of course, I wasn't making any money. And after that, I graduated, went to Rockford, couldn't ditch the Rock, went to Little Rock. After that, did 6 years there and decided it was time for something different and moved here to Austin and been here since October. This is very different than what I was doing in day-to-day affiliate news. This is a lot more, when you have 24 hours to do whatever the heck you want, we're not butted up against Wheel of Fortune or Jeopardy. So it is nice to be able to tell a bit more of a lengthier story and not have to be totally cramped to that typical minute 30 that you're used to.
But you've been an MMJ all the way through Rockford, Little Rock, and to today.
Of course, as an MMJ, you're obviously going to have the ability to be with a photographer every now and then. But for the most part, yeah, I've done it all by myself. I've sort of enjoyed it because it gives me the liberty to sort of have my own schedules. If I can get the thing done, I can get it done and still do what I want to do on a daily basis if I need to get something done.
I've heard some people say being an MMJ in a larger market, or in this case, cable news operation, you control your own destiny.
You really do. I mean, which comes with its pros and cons, obviously. I'm still, it's been an adjustment to say the least. Again, coming from I mean, again, this is still local news, but going from that typical 5, 6, and 10 schedule to it's on the air all the time. It was definitely a bizarre transition for me, but something that I'm learning to enjoy. And again, the fact that I can sort of let a story breathe a little more than just cutting to the chase.
Okay, let's turn to Spencer Turkin. Spencer, if help me remember, is New York City home to you?
Originally, right outside New York City is where I came to Illinois from. Right now, I'm in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, which is where I've been based pretty much since graduating college, even though jobs have changed and circumstances have changed along the way. But it's actually pretty funny that all 4 of us ended up down south somewhere with all of our northern roots. So,
yeah, with the exception of Syra, you all have beards.
Yeah, we've
I'm
done.
working on it.
Quarantine life.
We're meeting on a couple weeks.
Spencer, tell us a little bit about what you do now. I know you wear several hats, including when I saw you in Champaign at State Farm Center not long ago, seems not long ago, when you were doing play-by-play for North Carolina A&T. But you also do have a few other hats that you wear. So explain what you do now, and then let's go back to college and explain to students who are watching what you did then that helped your career path.
Of course. So JP's right. I do a whole bunch of different things. I have decided to go with the freelance and contract route for play-by-play announcing, which is totally different than going into a news operation like my 3 classmates have decided to do. Basically, I'm responsible for booking all of my own work. So I have kept the same play-by-play job on the radio for North Carolina A&T basketball, a Division I program down here in North Carolina since 2013. And around that, I've been able to start transitioning into television work. So I do some stuff for ESPN Plus and ESPN3, Flow Sports, the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference, the Southern Conference, the Atlantic 10. So basically, I'm all over the place calling any game that there's a paycheck. So soccer, men's and women's, volleyball, basketball, football, baseball, softball, you name it. They're sending me to go do these games, mostly in the Southeast when it comes to the television stuff. But just the other day, it was presented to me that I have an opportunity to go call men's basketball games outside of the country in November if we're allowed to travel, and I can find a way to get a new passport because you can't do that right now. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, it's a little crazy trying to book enough games to get yourself together. I had to start doing that in January, so not the best time right now because we're not playing sports, obviously. But I was writing previously. as well. But right now, I'm going to focus more on the television side of things, and had a nice little run as a sports writer in addition to doing play-by-play. Finished top 10 in the country in investigative sports journalism from the AP during that run. So that was pretty cool, and got to diversify my portfolio a little bit. And I've held all different types of jobs since I've left. I've been a sports director at a local radio station. I host a noontime news show for about a year here in Winston-Salem, and who would have thought that would have ever happened? And so you just try and make it work is the bottom line. I started out at IMG College as a part-time freelancer, doing halftime and pregame shows for what is now Learfield IMG College. So basically on the sports radio networks for a lot of the Division I schools. And so that's how I came down here. And here we are, and trying to make it through the pandemic with no sporting events to call. And
Spencer, what'd you do in college that got you
yeah,
ready?
in college, let's see, what did I do in college?
That you can remember.
Yeah, I guess I showed up to your class every once in a while. That was helpful. I was the sports director for Daily Illini On Air, WPGU. I hosted the Illini Drive at 5 for 3 years. I was Big Ten Network Student U broadcaster. I held a bunch of different internships. I did one in media relations for the NYPD. I was over at ABC with Steve Breitweiser and Aaron Matus in Champaign for a summer. I was in the research and statistics department at MLB Network for a summer as well, helping out and traveling around the country with those play-by-play announcers and getting them prepped for their games. And and just trying to really find my way in sports and call games and make it work. And I will say, though, that learning the news side of things did help. It was really good to learn that side, because you just never know what you're going to need down the road, what comes up in the middle of a broadcast. Matt will tell you, we took the butchering and harvesting class together on the South Farms, and
You have no idea how many
times.
You have no idea how many
Which is
times I
ironic.
used that.
I'd say it's the ironic part is that I'm the one from a cattle farm, and they're the ones that took butcher.
Right, we needed to take the class, Bryce. That's why we took it.
But I'm just saying, you have no idea, living in Arkansas for 6 years, the amount of times I used that to talk to people who live in rural Arkansas, saying, I know about skinning and butchering things.
Yeah. I mean, right now, I can tell you, like, with what's going on in the world, growing up on a farm is very, very helpful at CNN right now, because we're constantly interviewing meat suppliers and farmers all over the country because of how they're affected. And even my boss mentioned the other day, she's like, I'm really happy we have somebody that has your expertise on this team, because those are the things that versatility and knowing a little about a lot of things and having that might be that way of connecting with somebody on a story or even in a job interview. Those little nuances about your personality go a long way.
Hey, we got a question from someone watching us, a student or actually a recent graduate who's already working in television. Marissa, you're on the line. Can you go ahead and ask your question?
Yes. Hi, guys. Thanks for being here. I'm actually a reporter right now, MMJ at WQAD in the Quad Cities. So Sterling's actually my beat. I'm in Galesburg all the time. Crazy, I know. But
you guys
just
did a story on my brother.
Your contract, and I've sent my reel to news directors, and I don't want to turn to an agent because we don't make enough in this business to have to give 7% of my salary to someone. But what's your best advice to make sure that like news directors actually see my reel and like get back to me in an email or anything? I just want to hear back from someone.
Well, I would say, I mean, if some of the stations you're applying to, if you know someone that works there, it helps to just be like, hey, can you help me make sure your news director sees this? Or can you just go in and ask? And I remember, I don't know if you're in the Facebook group TV News Women. If you're not, I definitely recommend jumping in that Facebook group. I remember obviously I didn't get it, but I was trying to get a job in St. Louis a few years ago. And I just straight up found her through that group, Instagrammed, messaged one of their main anchors and said, hey, here's my reel. How, I'm trying to reach your news director. And she walked into his office and watched the reel with him. And then she, gave me feedback afterwards. So I think it's really helpful to, use your network, whether someone you went to college with works there, or you just reach out to someone honestly that works there over social media and be like, hey, what's your advice for getting your news director's attention? I didn't get an agent until this job. I think once you want to crack a top 20, then it's a good idea and then it's worth it. Even then, maybe if you know someone in a top 20 market that can help you, great, save 8% of your salary by doing that. But I didn't know anyone on air in a top 20 market. So I was like, I'm going to get an agent. This works for me. But my first 2 jobs, I used, tvjobs.com and just your personal network. I called after Teach for America. I called Matt Mershon and was like, hey, how do I get my first job? And he was like, here's what you're going to do. You're going to apply to every market 100 and below. And that's what I did. And it worked. So use your network.
Well, I think just another thing to piggyback off that's really important. A lot of applications you'll see do not call. Don't listen to that. Like, they're doing that as a way to weed out people who aren't ambitious about the job. And yeah, you might annoy them, but more times than not, it's appreciated. People who take that initiative to call, to ask directors, to repeatedly push for that job, that will stand out. So that's a really good way to get attention of people that you might not necessarily have an in with. Can call them, bother them. That's their job. Their job is to find talent. And if you're coming to their door and showing that you want a gig, that will go a long way.
Matt, you were going to jump in?
No, I mean, first off, fantastic you already have a job in the Quad Cities, because I didn't when I got out of college. I interviewed at WQAD, but some guy had 3 years of experience. He was from the Quad Cities. I'm like, yeah, I get it. Okay. But I went to Rockford, and that was my, advice to anybody, getting into the business. And I think, Syra would agree, as well, as you take what you can get. If you want to be on air, you're going to go wherever the hell you want to, wherever to go. And I think it's always better to be in a smaller market, frankly, so you can make your mistakes and less people are watching those mistakes. But, but I did TV jobs again and went to Little Rock. And I mean, obviously compared to the $22,500 I was making in my first job, the $30,000 in Little Rock sounded amazing.
Whoa.
I would say I probably could have used an agent trying to break into the next, realm. I decided not to. I think my job choices were a little limited. I took this job in Austin. I like Austin. I'm happy here. But I think the advice from my other, fellow classmates, I would take that to heart, definitely, in your job search. The agent thing was something that I toyed with, and yeah, no, it's very nerve-wracking to think, especially based on what you're making right now, which I'm sure is pennies. I'm not making that much more here in Austin, mind you. But honestly, that's the thing that would freak me out. But it is one of those, you have to weigh the benefits of it, and really, I would consider it, but I would definitely ask the tough questions of your agent first.
Hey, I just want to point out to you, if you've seen in the news, the guy who walks up and grabs a camera and smashes it down in the parking lot.
That was at QAD, wasn't it?
That was at WQAD, the station that Marissa's at. Marissa, are you still on the line?
No, I think we lost.
Maybe not, but yeah, if you've seen that video, if not, go look for it. If you Google WQAD, the guy literally got mad that he was maybe being shot, grabbed the camera and smashes an ENG camera all to smithereens. He's been around.
I hope that wasn't my brother, because WQAD about a month ago did a story on our farm and donated food banks. So I hope my brother didn't go crazy on your camera.
Not your brother, Bryce.
We'll send
That was, I saw the guy's face. That's not your brother.
I have another question because you guys are attracting a lot. Kaylin is on the line. Kaylin, you have a question for these fine people?
Hey guys, yeah, I do. I'm also a WQAD person. I'm a producer there, and I'm about to hit my 1 year. But for pretty much all of you guys, this is kind of the first conversation I'm hearing about freelance work, and so I just wanted to ask, what are some of the pros and cons versus being contract versus freelance? And I'm kind of just interested in hearing about like sort of your experience, especially like Spencer with freelance work. Where do you start?
Yeah, that's a great question. Where do you start? So you start out by making $100 a game and you hope that you can pay your rent. That's really where you start, and you have to bet on yourself. And I've really wanted to do this for a long time, so I took a chance and I moved luckily somewhere that was pretty easy living, cheap rent, a lot to do for a little bit of money, and was able to make it work. And because of that, I've been able to continue to do this. I've definitely made sacrifices to make it happen. But the best part about freelancing is I do what I want. I mean, I answer to myself at the end of the day. I know if I'm doing a good job because I'm getting more requests for games that are unsolicited. If I'm going ahead and grabbing myself a couple of assignments here or there, and then someone else is watching and they call me up, that's how I know that things are going well. And that's really what's been happening now for the last couple of years, which has been nice to see. The biggest thing is your network. Again, this is a business about who you know. There are a lot of people who aren't very good at their job that have much better jobs than all of us. And it's one of those things that they knew somebody at the right time that was making a decision, and people trust who they know, and that's just it. And so the biggest advice I have for you is to expand your network, stay in touch with people. I mean, one way or another, the four of us talk a lot. Even if it's just messing around with each other, joking, like has nothing to do with any of this. I mean, a Facebook memory could pop up from sophomore year and it'll spark a conversation that could last 10 days. I mean, like, who knows? It's important to keep that network going. But I'd be lying to you if I said it isn't stressful to do freelance. I mean, if you don't have games, you don't have a paycheck.
And no benefits, right?
No benefits. I take care of that on my own. I work from home though, which is really nice. So the local coffee shop, I'm a large part of their sales when you're allowed to go. And the other interesting part though, when you're doing freelance for a lot of these TV games and whatnot, is you're building in all your pricing for your travel. So you're handling all your own travel reservations and all those kinds of things. You're a travel agent, you're a sportscaster, you're a booking agent. I mean, you're helping other people get games that you had to turn down in hopes that they'll turn around and send them back to you when they have a scheduling conflict. So that it's just so much wheeling and dealing going on. But it is nice to have June and July off. I don't really see much downside with that under normal circumstances.
I think
Bryce and Syra, just real quick, they're in larger markets, like when you were in Chicago and Syra in Miami. Do you still have, I don't know what they call them, but daytime reporters that are freelance?
Yeah, totally.
We do.
You have a ton of freelance reporters. I know, I mean, you obviously have your full-time reporters, but you have freelance reporters that are working full-time hours. I can honestly say, so my first 4 or 5 years in the industry were freelance. Now, the last couple of years were full-time jobs, but I wasn't getting benefits. I didn't have the same off-time hours. I wasn't getting the same pay. So there are different forms. They call it in news. A lot of times they call it be a daily hire, where essentially you get a daily salary or an hourly salary, and you get paid a different way. I think some of the real benefits, I personally love my freelance experience. I'll say just off of what Spencer said, like it's stressful, not knowing how many days you're going to work in a month, what your job is going to be, what you need to do, where you're going to go. There's a lot of uncertainty when you do freelance. That said, it also gives you the ability to do a lot of different things at the same time. When I was at ABC7 as essentially a freelance desk assistant, I was going out in the field. I was covering the court, so I learned how to read court dockets, which has proved to be very valuable. I was answering phones at the assignment desk. That also, because I didn't have the necessarily guarantee that I was going to work 5 days a week, I spent a lot of time doing camera work for like commercials off, where I'd go shoot and do freelance and make $500 to shoot a commercial for a local marble factory. And while that doesn't seem like it would help you in journalism, it teaches you how to shoot. It teaches you how to edit. While it may not necessarily be journalism, there are ways to get those skills that will translate directly to what you're doing in the industry, even though you don't necessarily have a job in it. So I think that's definitely a really big benefit to freelance is being versatile and learning that versatility, which I think everyone in here will agree that versatility is the most valuable asset you can have in our industry right now.
Let me get to another question here, but there's a philosophy I've always told students about, which is you will learn more in your first 6 to 8 months at a new job than you learned in 4 years of college.
Yes.
Agree with that?
Yeah, I'd say that's true.
In other words, not only where the bathroom is in your new building, but sources and procedures and just a lot of things, not only in a new city that you have to learn, but a lot of things.
It's particularly the time management aspect. I mean, in TV2, you had, I remember, at least a few days to put together a package, and then you start your first job and they're like, all right, it's done at 5 o'clock, it's airing, done or not. Like,
and you need 2 different versions.
Right.
Yeah. And
so like it's the timeline. The timeline's the biggest thing is like, you'll like she said, you'll take a week to cut a package in college, and then you'll go to your first job and they want you to do 5 packages in the first week.
Yeah. Let's go to another question. Gavin is on the line. He has a question also kind of echoing on freelance, but other things. And I think it's aimed at you, Bryce.
Hey, everybody. And hey, Bryce, thank you all for doing this. My question is for Bryce. How much of a role do you play in the content you air on the show? And how many other producers are there? And what's that dynamic like working with all of them? Thanks.
Thanks for the question. Nice to meet you, Gavin. I love our dynamic. I think actually the dynamic at CNN is one of the more unique and probably the better ones I've had in my experience in the industry. On any given show, on our show on any given day, there's between 4 to 7 writers, or segment producers like myself, 2 line producers that handle an hour of each show. So like I said, we're 8 to 10. So one person will handle the first hour, one person will handle the second. There's a senior producer who's just kind of like that right-hand man, really will do anything the show needs and helps the EP who will lead our 2 hours of coverage. So that's kind of the hierarchy of our show structure. That said, what I love is I have a ton of say in the questions that we have, or the content, the questions, the direction. Obviously, there are times where you need to be more specific, or they might want a certain angle or a certain question, and you might need to tweak it a little bit. But when I get in the morning, when I start writing, I get free reign to really cover. They might give you a couple bullet points, but you can go really find what you think is relevant. I'll usually get in for any given segment. If I have a 5-minute interview, that first hour or 2, I'm trying to hammer out, I'd say 5 to 7 questions. And they're really thought out questions with the research. And then after that, my anchor will go in, he will take a look at what we have, and then we'll get on the phone and really discuss and walk through what we like, what we think we need to tweak. So while it's very hands-on on all aspects, I get a ton of creative control to ask the right questions, which is very important to me. To be able to ask questions that I think are important and not just be like a talking head for a company. And I've never really had that experience so far at CNN.
Let me move on to another question. We've only got about 10, 15 minutes left. This question's from Peyton. And Peyton, you have a question about what you can do while you're at home during the stay-at-home time, or whatever we call it these days. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for your time. I hope all is very well with you and yours during this time, and I wish you nothing but the best on that front. As JP kind of indicated, I'm interested I guess personally, I'm interested in pursuing a career in television, on air, MJ producing, whatever that may be. And this has been a very weird time. A lot of the internships I applied for and interviewed for kind of dried up once COVID-19. So if you were in my position, or what advice would you have, maybe would be the better question, for help to, I guess, for me to bolster my resume and be in a position to be successful once entering the job market? Thank you so much.
I can jump in if you guys are cool with that. I was in your position. I mean, we were in a recession when we graduated. No, I wanted an on-air position, but really no one, at least the positions I was applying for, no one was hiring on-air straight out of college. They wanted people with all this experience. So I kind of did the non-traditional, took 2 years and did Teach for America for 2 years because I just wasn't having luck finding a TV job. That's one thing you could do, or I mean, honestly, take what you can get, or you can, explore other things that you're good at, take time to really work on your reel and iron it out, work on your writing skills. But I mean, maybe you won't get a TV job right away, and there are other things you can do, but you can always come back. And that's exactly what I did. I took my old reel that we made in JP's class. I was 2 years out of the game, and sent that same reel out 2 years later. The economy was a little better. People were hiring people straight out of college and putting them on air. And that worked out for me. Just the timing lined up once I was ready for a TV job, and I sent it out. And I guess it was both ways. The industry was ready for me and I was ready for the industry. So if it doesn't work out right now, it can still work out. Just because you don't maybe have a job lined up right at graduation doesn't mean it's not going to come. So I guess I don't really have something concrete that you can do. I'm just saying that, like, keep your spirits up, because if the timing's bad now, that doesn't mean the timing's going to be bad forever.
I would say sorry, go ahead, Matt.
I mean, just in regard to, I mean, I think I had a job by end of June. I mean, but for a month and a half after graduation, I lived in Champaign. I worked at CoFusion, and waited tables there. And
he was a great waiter too.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, dollar sushi night on Mondays. Yeah,
I busted my hump. I did a lot, but no, I mean, first up, the amount of jobs that I've had, period, in college, nonetheless, were very interesting. But no, I mean, getting out, I don't know if he was still there. I wanted to know, I mean, if he has had internships before, since I won't lie, that is very important to have on a resume. And if you don't, that is going to be tough. But no, I mean, I applied, I probably sent my reel to, 25, 30 different stations. And I heard back from a few of them. I think the fun part is in regard to quarantine life. If they like your stuff, shoot, before quarantine, all I did was FaceTime interviews for the job I have now. They didn't fly me in. So, and that was the same with one of the jobs. I was offered a job in Lubbock, Texas, straight out of college. And that was based off of a phone interview. And so obviously these things don't have to happen in person. You can certainly still reach out to people. And the general feeling I've gotten from quarantine, frankly, is that people are more willing to talk to random people because they're just looking for a little social interaction. So that's my thought on it.
I would add that just on the what can you do now? The thing is, what we all do for a living is we're all content creators, and you don't need a network or a station or an outlet to do that. You can create content, you can write, you can you can do podcasts. You can, if you have a camera, you can go out and take pictures, you can go out and shoot stuff and edit it. There's a lot of ways to craft your skill without necessarily being in the industry and being active. I know personally, I spent a lot of time doing that kind of stuff and editing random things or going out and taking random pictures of stuff. So I think there's a lot of ways you can still create content and get that eye and hone your skills without necessarily having to leave your neighborhood.
Going off of that, now is probably a really good time to go through all of your social media and purge anything you don't want to hide that can and does and will come after you. Anything that's public, go through it, purge. make sure, and I mean, post some videos of you to your public Instagram, just, you know, speaking really eloquently, you know, so that a hiring manager might do a Google search of you, your Instagram pops up and they watch you and they're like, you know what, this person has a great voice, they have a great look. They're not even looking at your reel. All they're seeing is the first thing that pops up in a Google search. So Google yourself, see what comes up, go through everything you've ever tweeted, everything you've ever posted that you can see publicly on Facebook, and ask yourself if that's the best representation of yourself, because that's the brand that people are going to look at when they're hiring.
And it matters, because I had a colleague that almost didn't get hired because of a post that they had from 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So like, you've got to make sure it's clean, because they will look.
Pristine, not just clean, like flawless social media.
Let me get to our last question here, because we're wrapping towards the end. And remember, you're going to have to come up with a tip. Avery has a question. Avery, go ahead and ask.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So my background mostly right now is in radio. So I was just curious, what is the most useful background to have? Is it radio? Is it TV? Is it podcasting? Is it broadcasting? Is it something else? Where should I focus my attention?
Okay, thanks, Avery. Spencer, you look like you're ready.
Yeah, writing, not even a question. We all write, period. Every single day in all of our jobs, even though we are not writers, and I'm not anymore. I was for a few years, but writing is the most important thing, period. There is no other answer to this question.
I'm not very, listen, truly, I mean, because we're all in some form of broadcasting, and I mean, I still have to write a script. I don't want to make it sound like complete nonsense. And, you know, I mean, and that involves writing, especially, you know, I think for a story, frankly, it needs to flow so people can understand it and be interested in it. And writing has a lot to do with that.
When you're not just writing scripts, like that's the other part you realize, especially in your first couple jobs, if you're going to be on air, you're going to be writing a script for your package, but you're probably going to be writing the digital story as well. So there's a really good chance that you might need to be not just writing for broadcast, but for print and for digital. So having the ability to write in many different forms in different ways is it. That's my entire job is writing, whether it's questions, whether it's
Bryce, you're on a dial-up connection.
Someone
and you.
You think someone like CNN would have better
graphics,
internet
you're
access?
still in some way.
Someone's got to mute Bryce.
What? So my internet went out in the middle of this.
I'll just piggyback off of that, not just writing, but storytelling. You know, I feel like storytelling across platforms, if you can tell a good story, that's something that's going to get radio, TV, anything, especially in your first jobs. Just tell someone a really solid, good story that captivates your audience. So if you, again, what you should be doing during quarantine is read good stories, read good fiction, read good nonfiction, and learn from that, learn from writers' styles, because the more you read and the more you look at, you know, watch Boyd Hubert with KARE 11 in Minneapolis, watch Steve Hartman with CBS, you know, watch really good storytellers and just learn how to craft a really good story.
Anything KARE 11 does.
Yeah.
Let me point out some of the people, students and grads who may be watching are kind of print focused. Should they still be applying at broadcast places for maybe digital jobs, writing jobs?
Absolutely. Writing for web, 100%.
Well, and you got to realize, like, especially at CNN, we're hiring and bringing on print journalists all the time. Like, we have correspondents from the Washington Post, New York Times, Politico. So even though these people are professional writers, they're still getting lots of airtime as analysts, as contributors. So there's always a need for it.
I think we had layoffs in Little Rock at the local paper, and thank God that we did, because we were able to land one of the great writers for our digital team. Digital is so important right now. I mean, that is really how people consume this. And so honestly, yeah, print apply everywhere because it is very
And
valuable.
the same with the, I'd work in TV, but I don't want to be on air. There are positions for them.
Absolutely. Yeah. For web, I know a lot of people, so our best investigative journalists, even if they're not on air at my station personally, are former print journalists, and they were investigative newspaper journalists. We hired them on. One of them, Michelle Solomon, has her own podcast now, and she does these really great in-depth investigative pieces, and we are promoting them on TV. And then they're these huge award-winning, it's called the Florida Files, if you ever want to listen to them. But a lot of great former print journalists work at my TV station. So there's definitely places you can go other than newspapers with that print background.
Okay, we're down to just a few minutes left, so I'm going to ask you for brief answers, 30 seconds. So.
Oh, God.
You need a tip. What are you going to tell this class of 2020 that makes them stand out, makes them more valuable, other than their Illinois degree?
Ooh.
Oh, gee.
Sarah, the box is around you. You get to go.
Oh my gosh, my tip. I mean, to stand out, just work hard. You know, if you're working hard and working on your craft, you're gonna stand out. People can see hard work in this industry and they know what it looks like. But just to say, my biggest tip is a lot of people are going to tell you no, especially graduating in the middle of a recession. A lot of people told me no. I probably got 100 no's, but you only need one yes. How many jobs are you going to have at one time? Not 100. So put out 100 applications. That's okay. You're going to get 99 no's, and that's fine. Like, just swallow your pride, you know, especially your first couple jobs. There is absolutely no room for ego, you know, be humble. And again, one yes is all you need. So you might feel discouraged after 50 applications. Oh no, people are on hiring freezes because of this pandemic. Who cares? Keep putting out the applications. Keep calling people, like Bryce said. Keep working your network, because again, all you need is one person to say yes and get your foot in the door.
Bryce, you got a big tip to share?
Oh no, so I agree with her on that. Like, I applied for 62 jobs after college. I got one interview and I got the job. So like, you don't need a lot of opportunities. You just need that opportunity. So you got to keep grinding. I think keep growing. Right now is a really nice time when we don't have a lot going on, that you can be building your knowledge. You can be building aspects of your life that, like, whether it's learning business or politics or reading more or writing more or shooting, whatever it is, this is a really good time for personal growth. And it's not just self-care, it's building yourself as a professional. So you don't need a job to do that.
Okay.
So I'd say continue to do that work.
Matt?
Versatility. You really do. You need to be versatile. You need to be able to do whatever the job requires. And
second.
And any, I mean, I think in my last job, especially because I was the only MMJ at a mostly reporter photographer station, I knew how to do everything and they relied on me. Now, will they pay you to do that? I don't know. But you know, the fact is that they do want you to know those things. Is it valued? Yes. With a check, I don't know.
Mr. Turkin.
My biggest advice is this is all like a game of craps. You have to bet on yourself. And if you're not going to bet on yourself and you're not going to double down, then you really shouldn't do this, because this is going to be brutal. And this is hard. You're probably going to get fired at some point. You're going to find yourself unemployed. Like, it is not easy. It is a struggle out here. And if you really want to do it, you will succeed, but you have to be willing to bet on yourself.
And in terms of applying for jobs, somebody told me you're probably not going to win the lottery by buying one ticket. You're not going to get a job by applying to only one place.
Well, I will say, JP, just one last thing is, the four of us, like, I mean, we all came from the same class, and I think we're probably half of our class that is still in the industry. Like, it is truly a survival of the fittest industry. It is the people who are willing to grind, who are willing to take the crappy hours, the crappy pay, the city that you don't want to live in, and the people that are willing to push through that are the people that end up, fortunately, where all four of us are now, which is still in this industry and succeeding and doing things that we never thought we'd be doing.
Hey, you guys, thank you very much for your attendance today, for helping fellow Illini you get back into town, maybe we can actually share a beer or something together. By the
Blue
way,
guy.
Cam,
I need
Blue
to
guy.
if you want a brick from Cam's, they're only $100 a piece, or 150.
We're journalists. We can't afford that stuff.
How about the former employee discount?
Mike, thanks.
Former employee discount.
See you later.
Take care.
This year we had kind of an interesting last couple months because we were, as you're well aware, forced to shift to online.
We've changed how GMI works online, obviously, but we've still been able to put out pretty consistent content. Our last show was actually full length, and our past ones were actually pretty decently stocked with news. And the dedication of our news anchors and our reporters was really what helped us keep it together.
I think that it really changed the way that we viewed our stories and how we conducted the class.
We were handling the transition to virtual pretty well, I think.
For Good Morning Illini, this whole pandemic shifted our focus to online, which is honestly important still with or without, social distancing. So it's always good to have a website and to practice these kinds of skills. And so we made a nice central website for Good Morning Illini production. And I feel like this is something that we needed, a year ago.
Our anchors couldn't be in the studio, so it did have a very much a YouTube-y feel. But I mean, you're getting that with shows like John Oliver or Trevor Noah or Jimmy Fallon. A lot of these online shows are having that same feel. So we were at the same quality level as those shows.
So we had some really great stories that came out of it. We had Jared's, which was on online learning, and we had Jose's on small businesses and how they struggle to stay afloat. And so while this was problematic at first, I feel like we rose to the occasion and made a really good semester out of it.
And they produced some really interesting blogs and some really interesting segments that were, not what typically GMI sees, but were still kind of really documenting how the COVID-19 was affecting their lives, and by that, everyone's lives, really.
With all things, we try our best, and we can only adapt. And that's what they teach us in the University of Illinois.
Yeah, and that's kind of how GMI is.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome
Hello.
to session number 2 here on Saturday. This one about multimedia journalism. We're joined by 4 loyal alumni in various corners of the United States this morning, trying to help the class of 2020 and recent graduates navigate a very unusual job market out there that exists today, and also to share their expertise about what the heck am I really going to do as an MMJ after college, so that life after commencement, what will it be like? How scared should they be? How real should they be? What are the professional expectations? We've got a lot to cover, and we do want to allow our those of us watching us on YouTube and here on Zoom to have an opportunity to ask questions. So let's get started, and let me get started first with Trish Christakis, who is one of our alums. She is in Peoria, Illinois, an anchor and sports reporter at WEEK and HOI TV. Trish, you're going to have to remind me your background, where you're from, and then what you did at the U of I that got you ready for your current career.
Yeah, I'm actually from the Chicago suburbs, so native to Illinois. At U of I did a lot of Big Ten Student U. I interned with WCAA, the CBS affiliate in Champaign, which was super helpful as well. And I also worked at the radio station, the ESPN local radio station there. I'm blanking on their call letters, but I worked there as well, which helped me land my gig in Peoria, and was there for about a year reporting and got promoted to sports director. So I've been there for coming up on 4 years. So yeah.
And Trish, are there things you learned in school that what's the word, that haunt your dreams and go, oh yeah, I remember that from class? Or yeah, if it hadn't been for, are there things like that that apply to your workaday world?
I definitely, in our TV2 class, when we had to do our packages, I think we got like a week to do a package, which is, I know things have changed quite significantly since I graduated in 2015, but I mean, you're doing day turns. Sometimes you're turning 2 packs a day, depending on what shift you are, and leaving stuff for the evening crews, their morning crews. But the hustle and bustle from TV1 and TV2 is just the same or exemplified, especially depending on what field you are. In sports, it's completely different because a Friday night you're taking 13 minutes of the newscast that you're solely producing yourself. So yeah, it helped prepare, but there's nothing like being in the live newsroom under live TV settings.
Great. Thank you, Trish. Ted Land is up next. Ted joins us from Seattle. He's with King TV in Seattle. Ted is an MMJ in Seattle, which is kind of surprising. And, most of us don't think of MMJs in larger markets. But Ted, help me here. Your path has been through Reno, Alaska, South Bend, and now Seattle. Is that correct?
That's right. I've kind of jumped all around the country. Started in Reno in 2007. Right after I graduated, a few months after. Made it about 7-8 months there, and the recession was in full swing then, and they laid everybody off. Went back to Chicago, worked as a freelance photographer at CLTV, which is now gone. And then I went up to Alaska for about 4 years, worked as a reporter, started MMJing a little more, went down to South Bend, WSBT, did that for about 1.5 years, and then that took me to Seattle, where I've been for about 6 years now.
And Ted, what did you do in school that helped your career?
I spent as much time trying to dip my toe into the real world as I could. The lessons on campus were great and very helpful and really created a great foundation. But like Trish, I spent a lot of time at WCIA, a few nights a week, actually, just hanging out with the producers, helping write the show, helping edit the shows, and helping with breaking news. And that was really, that was a really valuable experience, to be in an actual newsroom and kind of absorbing those lessons. So it was those like small stations where there was like so much work being done. And I still remember vividly a lot of the lessons I learned there. So yeah, I mean, just getting off of campus and like into the real world, as much as I could, given the constraints of a college workload, but that was so helpful.
I have to tell everybody, Ted was part of an international journalism class with me and Professor Nancy Benson. If you all remember Professor Benson, in China in 2007. Is that right, Ted?
Yeah, 2007.
Not only did we have to try to figure out journalism, but figure out journalism in Chinese, where we didn't know the language, the food, and in your case, help me, you did computers, like how they dispose of.
Yeah, I did a piece on electronic waste recycling. A lot of stuff is shipped over there and kind of scrapped in these very hazardous, situations. Yeah. So kind of tracked down where electronic waste ends up.
He poked his finger at the mafia of China. Let's move on to Aubrey Morris. Aubrey joins us today from Denver. She is a photojournalist at KDVR. Is that right, in Denver?
Yes.
But your career path started in Champaign after school, then Kansas City, now Denver. So tell us a little bit, not only about your career path and what you do today, but what you did in school that you think made it valuable to help you on your path.
Yeah, of course. So it seems like we all have a connection with WCIA. I happened to, that was my first job in June of the year that I graduated. I got a photojournalism job with WCIA. They were still hiring photographers and still are, which is great for market 80 something, 85. So that's where I got my start, was there for 2 years, got all of the kinks out, learned a lot, and then made my way to Kansas City, was there for 3 years, and then hopped over here to Denver when an opportunity presented itself. So I've been here, it'll be 2 years in July. And so I'd say one of the biggest things that I learned at the U of I to really gear me and get me ready for this was deadlines, all the deadlines. Of course, we had extended deadlines on a lot of our things, but I remember many a time where we were editing packages the night that they were, before they were due, the day before, everyone there until 4 a.m. So I think we all work really well on those tight deadlines, even if we put them upon ourselves. And so I think that was something that really propelled me forward.
Were you surprised, Aubrey, when you left college and saw professional expectations rather than college expectations?
I was smacked in the face. Yes. Yes. It was a good learning experience. I always tried in those packages that we created at school. And so that allowed me to just kind of springboard off of that and incorporate that into my day-to-day at WCIA and moving forward. But those expectations are different. You're expected to know everything already. And that's what those first market opportunities are for you to learn in those instances. You don't know everything. Make sure you remember that, because there is a lot of learning to do. I'm still learning to this day, and just keep an open mind.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to Lauren Scafidi. Lauren is joining us from Cadillac or Traverse City. Lauren, where are you?
Cadillac.
She's from Cadillac, Michigan, where she is a morning anchor and sometimes reporter for 9 and 10 News, which is what, kind of a duopoly type situation, or is your newscast carried on 2 channels?
Yeah, it's carried on 2 channels, just kind of depending on where you are, but we are CBS and Fox.
Okay, explain for us what you did in school that helped your career. And Traverse City Cadillac is your first job out of school?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I've been here since I graduated in 2017, but I tried to do a little bit of everything while I was at U of I. I did Daily Illini, and at first when I joined Daily Illini, I was like, do I want to join the school newspaper? Because I want to go into TV. And now I'm so happy I did the newspaper. I learned things in newspaper that I can apply to my TV job now. But so I did Daily Illini, I did radio WPGU, I did Good Morning Illini, I did sideline reporting for Student U, and I was also at WCIA like Aubrey, Ted, and Trish. But I just learned so much at U of I. I mean, JP, I still hear you in the back of my head sometimes when I'm putting packages together, when I'm doing things, I still hear JP say, well, are you sure? Do you want to do that this way? So I still hear you, JP, and Ken as well.
Well, we will haunt your dreams the rest of your life.
Yeah, I know.
So let's talk about, there's a philosophy I heard that I talked about in the last session, that you will learn more in the first 6 or so months of a new job than you did in 4 years of college.
Mm-hmm. And you are so right. There is just so much you don't know that you don't even know you don't know. So it was definitely a learning curve. And I'm still I think it was you that said it, Aubrey, I'm still learning every single day. And as silly as it sounds, I try to realize something every single day. At the end of every shift, at 9 o'clock or 9:15, whenever I'm done, I try to say, what did I learn today? Sometimes it's a really big lesson. Sometimes it's, okay, you should say the sheriff's office, not the sheriff's department, just little things like that. So just every single day I try to realize something new.
Trish, you want to chime in?
Yeah, I've done a little bit of everything between sports and news in my current position. So I think one of the main things that I learn every day just being in this business is coming up with story ideas is still constantly, I think, what a lot of people struggle with. And one of the big ways I learned how to do it is to join a lot of Facebook groups, join a lot of Twitter accounts that have to affiliate with the city, with the communities, a lot of neighborhood groups, etc. And I think sometimes people are afraid almost to engage a lot with the community and kind of become their friends, because people forget, you live in that community too. You're you want to know what's going on. So you have to remember, just because you're a servant to the people, you're also a servant to yourself in that essence. So you have to ask yourself, what do I want to know about this area? So I think a lot of times newer MMJs, reporters, anchors, etc., forget that. and they look at, oh, well, what can I investigate this week, which is also important. But you have to remember the little things that may slip by that, you know, your neighbor or someone down the street may want to know about. That is something so small that you'd think.
We have a question from actually not a current student. Nico Burton's on the line with us. Those of you that might remember Nico, he has a question about now that he's moved to the dark side of the industry, how can he keep his skills polished? Go ahead, Nico.
Hey, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. So first and foremost, thank you all for being on. Also wanted to give a quick shout out to one of my favorite classmates, Lauren Scafidi. Miss you like crazy. Hope you're doing well. But yeah, like JP said, for us alums that have kind of drifted into a different industry, I started at WSBT, Ted, right along with you
nice.
over at that station, but have now moved. I was at a PR agency and now have moved into ad sales at Hulu. But what are the most important skills to maintain or polish if we're keeping on-air job prospects on the table?
Great. Thank you, Nico. You want to jump in on one of those, Trish, maybe? Are you a stand in front of the mirror in the bathroom and polish your skills?
Yeah, I would say keeping up with the community is honestly the number one thing, and always making sure that you can write and keeping up your writing skills, especially in a conversational way, because I think that's what people tend to forget when they go into PR jobs is they write like a release, when our job is to communicate that conversationally. So if you can keep up your writing skills and make sure you have your on-air presence, whether, I don't know, are you presenting stuff in front of a, you know, a boardroom or something like that, get those reps, I guess. If I'm understanding your question correctly, the position to maybe transfer back into on-air, I would say definitely do presentations, et cetera, and keep up the conversational writing so you don't get used to writing press release style forms, because I feel like every job interview you go to, you're gonna do a writing test. And if you're not writing like a conversational way, you might get booted.
Ted, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I would say you have to be able to demonstrate like the building block skills of the job, from shooting, writing, editing, you know, all the basics, because there's going to be applicants to that same job who are already in journalism who can do all those things. And then on top of that, the way you're going to get an edge is if you prove you're a specialist in something. So you're not just like a reporter who can, like, you know, just get out there and cover news, but somebody who really knows something about either their community or a certain topic that they're trying to cover. That's going to get you noticed, because I don't have experience like leaving the industry and getting back in, but they're going to be skeptical about, you know, does this person have all the skills that it needs? But if you come in there with like a really deep understanding of finance or local government, or some really good sources within a certain field that is important to them, it's going to be a no-brainer to bring you into the organization, because like Trish said, this honestly, the one thing I like want to impress on younger people is like, all the skills are great, but like your story ideas and what you pitch and what you bring to the table, it's like 50% of the job, at least at my newsroom and at this level. It's like, that's what my managers notice. That's what people notice, is like when you bring something that nobody else has. Like that is probably the most important thing.
Let me move on to another question. Jose is on the line. You have a question about, did a specific package that you did in school help you land that first job? Go ahead.
Hey everyone. Yeah, so my question is, when you guys were still at U of I, what kind of packages that you created there did you use in your reel that maybe help you stood out more? So were they like some personal stories, or, you know, some really like hard-hitting news stories? And if not, why wasn't that the case, or why so?
I can answer that a little bit. I remember one of the packages I did was I covered a career fair, and I actually held a tarantula in my stand-up. And I think that a first year MMJ is not really having that type of stuff unless you're doing it at an internship. But I would say creative stand-ups for sure in any of your packages, whether it's breaking news, a feature piece, something emotional, etc., because you want to be able to show you can be creative with your stand-ups, whether you're moving, whether you're holding a huge spider, have a snake, or you're walking even along the street. Adding movement is never a bad thing, and showing you're creative will definitely catch a news director's eye, because if you're just standing with a thumb sucker shot, anyone can do that. You know what I mean? So you have to show your abilities and your creativity.
Aubrey, you're not on air, but you must have ideas of things you had as a videographer, as a photojournalist, that made you stand out in that first job.
I think that was something that I knew very early on, is that my forte was video and editing. And so, yes, creative stand-ups, awesome, love it. If you're able to incorporate those, that's awesome. But those foundations of grabbing your wide, medium, tights and sequencing those together will really also make you stand out, because anyone can go out there with an iPhone, grab some different shots. But if you're able to actually sequence, so you're down on the street, you get a wide of everything, the buildings, trees, whatnot, get that wide, get a nice tight shot of a window in one of those apartment buildings, and move your feet. Like, that's essential, okay? So don't just stand in one spot, film what you can. Go ahead, grab that first shot, take a few steps, shoot again. So you want to make sure your angles are varied. You want to make sure you have wide, mediums, and tights that you can cut between. And if you're able to do that out the gate, that's going to set you apart.
Jose, I'm going to share one story with you about one, I think is a 2017 grad. There was a tornado on a Friday night in a small community outside of Champaign. On Saturday morning, this student got up and went to that small community, went to a house that was badly damaged, and did a story about a family recovering and picking up the pieces after the tornado. While she was there, during their scrounging around for pieces of their lives, they found someone's wedding dress. And that one shot in that one story got her her first job. So the other I would advise, do community news, not campus news. I mean, get away from campus so that you can show your future news director, whoever's going to hire you, I know how to cover the community, not just a demonstration by the alma mater. That's my suggestion. I'm not the expert. I'm going to turn to Lauren, you want to suggest anything?
Just kind of going off what other people said, I think having a wide variety of things in your reel, like I remember when I was interviewing, I had more than one news director tell me that I seemed like two different people in my reel, because I had the smiling, laughing, positive stuff from Good Morning Illini, and I had the more serious stuff that we covered in class. And they said that was a good thing, because I could do both. So I think just having a wide variety of stuff in your reel is really important to show them that you can do anything.
Yeah. Let's turn to another question. Marissa Sulek's on the line. Marissa, you're currently a reporter in Quad Cities, correct?
Correct. Yes. Yes, I am. I'm coming up on the end of my 2-year contract here. Not sure whether I'm going to stay, what my next plan is. But I guess one thing, and we don't really get much of this just being in the Quad Cities and it's kind of small, but like breaking news, we get it so infrequently that like when I am on the scene, I feel like I'm all over the place sometimes. But like, what's your best advice? I'm going to ask like 2 questions in one here for like covering breaking news, even if it's like 30 minutes to your live shot. I try and explain like what's going on in front of me, but sometimes I don't always feel like I deliver. And then just like burnout in general as an MMJ 5 days a week, I feel like by the time Friday comes, like I'm dead. How do you kind of like manage, especially like in a market like Seattle, how do you stay afloat in all of this?
Ted, we'll start with
yeah, first on the breaking news front, you have to, what I try to do on breaking news is not follow the herd, because there's going to be other stations there, and they all like stand on the same corner, right? And they all like wait for the PIO, and they all like get the same shots. Like, get away from that. Like, stay away from that herd. Like, don't miss the press conference if that's why you're there, but like, walk around, talk to everyone around the perimeter, knock on some doors, go down the block, go through the backyard, like go get away from the scene that everybody else is staring at, because that's how you get like good stuff. Don't just like stand there and like do what everybody else is doing, because they're all doing that. And, you know, I've always found it helpful, like, you know, you can get your shots of the scene or whatever, but the stuff that really makes your story pop is like the reactions to what you're seeing. So like turn the camera on the people observing this. I like to we can't really do this now, but put a wireless mic on somebody and just kind of stand back and like, you know, take in their reactions and use that to like paint that picture. But yeah, just don't, my advice is like within reason, don't follow the herd. And like look for that voice that nobody else is going to have. That's like, oh, I have a cell phone video of it. Like that's what you're going to find by talking to all these people. Is like someone's going to pull out a video that nobody else had. That's going to like set your newscast above. You're going to find that witness that nobody else talked to. Just kind of like circulate around the perimeter and start to talk to as many people as you can. You don't need like that many shots to like tell the story. So that buys you some time to do all that. And then on the burnout front, you know, this is like one of my great concerns about the industry since I got into it, is that like, it's really hard to make it as an MMJ beyond a few years, because you just like, you're just like aren't wired to handle it. So like, I just try to work smarter about my day and not work smarter, and like know that there are some stories that are, you just need to get like 20 shots, an interview, and then just explain what happened. It's that simple. Like, it doesn't have to like sing every day. You find like a little, you know, part of that story that you think will stand out. Do something interesting that will get people's attention that nobody else is doing. You can't have it all in one story as an MMJ. You can tell like a slice of the story, and hopefully that fits into the larger picture. But beyond just like taking care of yourself, like stepping away from the job when you're not there, asking for help when you need it, all these things are going to like help, you know, help you like get through all that. And I totally understand like the pressure. I'm actually more of a reporter now, since I moved to the night side shift, because the deadlines are so tight, that I'm working with a photographer more. But I do MMJ occasionally still, and you know, it's been much less stressful working with a photographer, because you have that team and you have that time to do all that. So, you know,
since Ted brought up photographer, or Aubrey, we're in your corner of the world. I know, I'm pretty sure you covered a pretty major fire in Kansas City at one point.
Yes.
So when you get on the scene, you're first there climbing out of the car. What's your approach, or your crew's approach, to covering breaking news?
Honestly, I remember that day pretty well. It was a Sunday morning. My reporter that I was usually working with, she was off on maternity leave, so it was just me. The news desk called and said, hey, there's a fire at this address, go check it out. And so I'm in my news car, and you just see flames off of the highway. So I am trying to get to the best vantage point that I can. And here's the thing with breaking news, whether this was back in 2013 or even now, I still get, it's almost anxious / excited to get to those scenes. And part of me wants there to be nothing. Part of me gets excited when I see those police lights and things happening. That way we can actually hit the ground running and just go for it. So when I got to the scene, I mean, this church was engulfed in flames. There were no other TV news crews on the scene at the time. There were plenty of police and fire around, but I was still able to get within a block radius of where the fire was at. So I tried to get as much information as possible. I took out my cell phone and I got some pictures to send on Twitter and notify people first. Fired up my TVU, put my camera out, and put up a shot while I was editing a tweet. And then they took a couple of shots live right after that. But as soon as that live shot was over, I kept moving to get different angles of this fire because it was that big. But I think that's one of the things when you get to a breaking news scene, as I had mentioned, you get nervous or excited. You want to make sure you take a deep breath, you remain focused, and figure out what you're going to do at that moment. So for me, it was getting different shots, the flames, obviously, and then work on getting information from the firefighters on scene eventually. Right now, what was happening were those flames. It was just so impactful. So that would be kind of my recommendation for, with regard to breaking news, take a deep breath, focus, grab what you need to. And as Ted had mentioned, make sure you look around. At this time, Sunday morning, there was no one else around except for what was happening with this fire. It wasn't in the neighborhood, it was next to an interstate. So, but if you are in a neighborhood where breaking news is happening, take a couple shots of what's happening with regard to that breaking news, but then take a moment, step away from your camera and look around, see who else is there, see who's interacting with this scene, go up to them, talk to them, see what you can do to tell their story through their eyes, or this story through their eyes. I think that's the biggest thing that I would recommend with regard to breaking news, if you're able to do so. So get the facts out first and then find that story.
If you guys remember back to TV2 days, the book I used was written by Al Tompkins, who's now at Poynter Institute. One of the tips he often gave when going to a fire, going to shooting, going to breaking news was, yes, get the shots you need of the building that's on fire or the cops at the house or whatever it might be, but don't forget to shoot the people who are there. So sometimes you have to turn your back on the flames, to actually shoot the reaction. By the way, sometimes the person who set the fire is there. Trish, address for me, if you can, the burnout factor. Is MMJ a burnout job?
If you let it consume you, it can. You're going to see some pretty scary stuff sometimes on breaking news. You might see, especially if it's fatal. I remember the first fatal breaking news I went to, my news director called me and he was like, just want to make sure you're okay. Like, I know it's your first thing. So I was very fortunate to have that support in my newsroom. But sometimes people forget that it's just the hustle and bustle of it. We don't check up on each other, which is something important that we should all be doing in our newsrooms, is checking up on each other, because we cover some gruesome things, and we get some gruesome messages from viewers as well. So it can take a lot on you, but I would just say, kind of like what Aubrey said, like before you go out into these breaking news things, take a deep breath and like calm yourself, because the last thing you want to do when you're covering a fire or a shooting and you're going to be interacting with these people is you don't want to be showing that you're very anxious, and you want to be calm and composed so the people around you feel safe and secure speaking to you. So then you can get that soundbite, you can get that that great shot or that great reaction. So if you're kind of freaking out, running around a little frantic, the people around you are going to catch up on that, and they're going to be hesitant to speak to you. But really take care of yourself. I sometimes, like on Saturday or Sunday, I'll just mute my notifications for my emails just so I have some time to decompress if it's been a bad week. Sometimes you have to. If they need to get in touch with you, they'll call you, but I wouldn't recommend doing that all the time, because, we are in news and news is ever changing. But sometimes you do need to decompress and take care of yourself and reach out to your coworkers, because they're going through the same things that you guys are going through and they're covering the same stuff. Or, reach out to the alumni groups at U of I, because we're all here and we're all going through it.
Let me get to another question from another, I'll say viewer, but this one is a graduate. Is it graduated in December? Gavin, you have a question? Go ahead.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for doing this. Yeah, I graduated in December and I'm applying. Most of my experience is in like covering beats and writing, but I'm applying for some TV and digital jobs now just because there's more of them. I'm wondering, because my background isn't really in that, how I can make myself more competitive with others who do have that broadcast background, and what positions I might have a better shot at. Thanks.
Want to jump in there, Lauren? You got an idea for him?
Yeah, I think, do you have a reel, Gavin? Can he answer or no?
I actually don't even have a reel. Like I have appeared on like broadcast studio TV one time. So no, I don't have a reel.
I would recommend, if you can just bring even your phone out and just pretend or just practice, shoot a couple of things, bring your phone out there. That's what I did when I needed to put my reel together leaving University of Illinois. I just went out there by myself. I set up a camera and I just did a couple of stand-ups and just did some practice. So I would just recommend get out there, do some practice and try to put something together maybe.
Let me ask all of you, for Gavin's case, are there a producer or associate producer jobs that he would be good at? Are there digital jobs in your newsroom that, because Gavin has a lot of online newspaper type background and experience and internships, does that make him valuable in a broadcast newsroom? In what way?
I would say, yeah, our digital, we hire people who have worked in print to work on our digital team, and they're very good at like putting out a story in the print format that looks really good and is like solid and the right formatting and everything. So like they're kind of that, for a lot of the broadcast people who maybe still are not great at print writing, they're kind of that quality control, the people who understand the print in business and who have had experience in that. So like digital producer is a great job for you if that's what you are interested in doing in a newsroom. Like those jobs there's a lot of those jobs out there. I can't speak to it like in this current climate, but there are a lot of digital producer jobs where if you have that like print background and the clips to show for it, that's going to be so helpful. And then once you're in a TV newsroom, maybe there's more opportunities for you to get in front of a camera and start building that up if that's what you're interested in.
Is Gavin, are you wanting to go on air? Is that an end goal?
Honestly, I don't really know. Like, I think my dream job would be, which this is a tough to do at any time, would just be to like host a show where I have guests that I interview. So I guess it could be a goal one day. I'm just trying to be open-minded though, really.
Yeah, because I mean, I know my station in particular, I know other markets, medium or smaller, they'll have roles where you're maybe the 5 p.m. producer and you're a 10 p.m. MMJ. So it gives you the qualities of writing and producing while also getting out in the field and doing your work. But if you have that digital platform, everyone on our digital team actually is from print. So we have a ton of people, and there's so many opportunities if you're trying to get into a newsroom for that specifically.
Yeah, I'd say just get your foot in the door as whatever you can do to get into a station. If that's your line of what you want to pursue, go ahead, apply for those web jobs, apply for production jobs, news desk opportunities. If you are a fan of being alert, you're a good communicator, have a good news sense, that could be up your alley as well. I'll provide you with a quick example. One of our web guys back in Kansas City, he was doing web for a couple years. He was really good at it. He ended up recording some different packages. I teamed up with him. You make friends in your newsroom. So we teamed up on a couple of different stories. He put that together on a reel, and now he's in Tampa doing Taste and See Tampa Bay, which is literally they're going to different restaurants, filming the food, talking to restaurant owners, and he's doing that daily. So you never know what your opportunities or what opportunities may present themselves. So just go for everything if you can. So don't let it scare you.
I'm told by some of our grads that are in big markets, including Chicago, probably true in Seattle too, but that the digital news desk is growing in size, not only in the number of employees, but just in size and importance to the overall newsroom operation. Is that true in Denver?
Yeah, people are using their phones all the time. I mean, we are still a very TV centered industry, but everyone has a cell phone now. Everyone is watching different clips, different things from Facebook, from Twitter, whatever that may be. The newscast is now in your hand. So the more that we're able to push that out to people, I mean, it's huge. The Script Station here in Denver had like their hub for web is here in Denver. Like their ideas come here and go elsewhere throughout the country. So it is growing, and it has been growing over the last 5 years. And if you can jump on that, go for it, because I think there's a lot of room to grow and a lot to learn in web.
I think one thing Gavin ought to keep in mind is many TV operations, really TV is just one of the methods to get the news out anymore. There are so many methods being used to get it out, and digital is a very important one, whether it's the website or Twitter or social media, whatever it might be. Hey, we've got another question. This one from a recent graduate who is in West Texas. Julianne joins us, where she's a weekday MMJ weekend anchor producer. So I think she wears several hats based on that. Julianne, go ahead. You have a question.
You guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. So like you said, I'm a weekday MMJ and weekend anchor producer right now. I'm about 5 months out from the end of my contract. So I'm starting to look into what my next move is going to be. I've applied to a couple, but I was wondering if I should be looking into an MMJ anchor role or a full-time reporter position, because I do find that it's harder to lock down an anchor position as the markets get higher. And then my second question would be, do you advise against switching back and forth from different corporates? So I'm under Nexstar right now. I am a little interested in Tegna. Some people say it's not good to do that just because you might get blacklisted or you'll lose your tenure. I was wondering if you guys have felt that that was something that was important.
Well, I'm going to turn to Ted because Ted is at a Tegna operation.
Yeah, first, I don't think there's any problem with switching companies. If there's a job that is aligned with your goals and it seems like the right move, it shouldn't matter what company you're going to. Yeah, it's nice to stay in Tegna, like me, for 6 years because you start racking up the time off. There's like benefits to staying in a company, but nobody's going to blacklist you. There's no like blacklisting of people. Like if you switch around to different companies, you make the move that's best for you. Your question about like what positions to be looking for, right now in this economy, you need to cast the widest net possible, right? And so what are stations looking for right now if they're hiring? They're looking for somebody who is going to maximize like the amount of money that they're putting into you, who's going to bring home, great stories and do it in a framework that's going to work for them. So like, I feel like the MMJ, if you are a go-getter as an MMJ, if you get out there and you do that well, like that's kind of a recession-proof place to be. And so, like worry about the anchoring later. I would say if that's a goal of yours, be persistent about it for sure. But in this economy right now, if you're just trying to be a reporter or just trying to be an anchor, you're just going to narrow your options a lot more. So cast the widest net possible. The MMJ route is going to give you the most opportunities right now.
Lauren, you want to chime in?
Yeah, I've heard a couple different things. I'm also, hi, John, I miss you. I've heard a couple different things. I've heard that once you get out of anchoring, it's really hard to get back into it. I don't know if that's true. And that's kind of where I'm kind of stuck as well, because I anchor now for the past year and a half, but I started as a reporter. So I'm kind of right there with you, girl. And as I apply as well, I'm applying to everything and everything, if that helps.
I think you also have to give yourself like a 5-year plan to some extent. Like, what do you want to do long term? Do you want to be an anchor? Is that your main goal? If it is, go to a station where if there's no anchor opportunity, you can be an MMJ and you can tell them, I want to fill in. Will that be an opportunity? And if they say yes, then that might be an option for you. If at the end of your contract, that's the only position you have available. But if your end goal is to be an anchor and you're dead set on that, I would make sure that you apply for those anchor roles and positions, because if you're going to go to St. Louis as a reporter, let's say, and then you want to be an anchor, you might have to drop down a few markets to then get that anchoring experience to come back up, which may be fine, maybe not fine, but you might as well start in that market 60 or 50 as an anchor reporter and then kind of move your way up, if that makes sense. But there's no right or wrong answer to which career path you choose. Sometimes you figure it out along the way. I mean, I started as a sports director and now I'm going back into news. So you have to, ride the train a little bit to figure out what you want.
Aubrey, you've been through a number of jobs in a number of companies.
Yes.
Is there is it hurt you to work for a different company when you move to a new job? Should you stay in the chain, so to speak?
I think that is, again, as Ted had mentioned, it's kind of up to you. It won't hurt you to jump around. My first station was owned by Nexstar. In Kansas City, it was owned by Scripps. And then when I came out to Denver, I went to the Tribune affiliate, which then got bought out by Nexstar. So I'm back in the Nexstar family. I will say I thoroughly enjoyed my time with Scripps. I've heard good things about Tegna. And the companies, in a broader sense, won't affect you in your day-to-day. That will really trickle down to the newsroom and how the newsroom operates. And so I think the key, instead of focusing just on who owns the station, is focusing on that newsroom. And if you find your place in that newsroom, if that feels like home to you, because that will make or break your contract with however long you have. that makes a huge difference. So I would get the corporations out of your mind. And if you find a company or a newsroom that you thoroughly enjoy, try and stick around for a while because you'll get more vacation. 5 years in, you'll get an extra week. So, and we don't have a whole lot of perks doing what we do apart from telling people stories. But if you can bank an extra week of vacation, try to.
Okay, let's
and you
go.
might get Monday through Friday and the holidays off. You know, that's what I'm at now, and it's like hard to walk away from that.
Yeah, I got here less than 2 years ago. We had a lot of movement in the photography staff, and now I'm Monday through Friday in Denver.
There you go.
So
Yeah, I mean, I will say to Julianne, there's nothing wrong with staying within your own company and trying to rise within the company to bigger markets, bigger cities, bigger challenges, but certainly don't turn down an opportunity outside of your company in a city where you go, I've always wanted to live in Denver or Phoenix or whatever it might be. Certainly don't let that block you. Let's go to another question from a recent graduate. Kaylin is currently not on air, but wants to begin to MMJ. Kaylin, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, all. Yes, like JP said, I am currently off air. I work as a producer, and I'm interested in wearing different hats and learning more about other jobs in the newsroom. Do you guys have any tips as MMJs or photogs? Like, what skills should I start picking up? Should I try to maybe hook up with the MMJ and like kind of shadow them?
I definitely think you should ask your news director if you can go with an MMJ or with a reporter photographer pair and just ask questions, learn what it's like. And I think that if you ask your news director and you do get to go with them, that just shows that you're willing, you're ready, you're able, and you want to. So I think it would be a great idea to ask. And then one thing I wanted to say earlier that has helped me a lot, seems like a silly trick, but my news director told me to practice kind of talking about anything for a long time. As you're driving, pick something, pick that tree that you see in front of you and talk about that tree just out loud to yourself for a minute. Because that's what you're gonna have to do when it's a cold day and you have to talk about the conditions. You're gonna have to talk about how cold it is for a minute straight. So just pick something, talk about it for a minute, and just practice talking about a lot of things for a long period of time.
I also think,
Aubrey,
sorry, go ahead.
Aubrey, did you want to jump in on this?
Oh, no. Feel free. Sorry. Trish, take it away.
Oh, I was just gonna say, come up with really good story ideas that are enterprise that you feel like only you could tell, and pitch it to your news director and be like, I know I'm a producer, but I have this great story idea and I really want to take it head on, and just show that you're passionate about a certain story or a certain maybe community development project that maybe you want to take on. And I think he'll see that and see the ambition and want to give you that opportunity, especially like what Lauren said, if you go out with a reporter, photographer pair, like maybe you've done the training, so to speak, first, but getting those enterprise story ideas and pitching it to your, EPs or your assistant news directors or news directors, et cetera, will definitely catch their eye because they always want something compelling to beat out the competition.
Ted said this early in their conversation today that you got to have good ideas. And when you get on the scene, don't follow the pack. I mean, your story is going to stand out when you try to find a different way to look at the story, then the competition is going to do that too. Another question today from Jessica, who is, I believe, a current student, and she's thinking about her reel and what should be on it, MMJ wise and otherwise. Jessica, go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, guys. I'm actually at my 1.5 year mark at my first station in Sioux City, Iowa. And I'm like at that point where I'm starting to think about my next reel, and I'm kind of looking back at all the stuff I've done. And I'm finding a lot of my stand-ups, I mean, I'm only by myself, so I'm only setting them up myself. And I'm looking at them and I want them to be more creative. And I was wondering if you guys have any tips to just, get that eye catcher for this next reel.
Okay, sorry about the student thing there, Jessica, but ideas, Ted?
Yes. So the locked down, standing in front of the camera, here's what I'm seeing, stand up. Yeah, anyone can do that. That's not going to catch anyone's attention. So like start thinking outside of that. Like, what can I do? Use every tool, like use your phone to go like walk around and like show me something. That's okay to put that on a reel, I would say. Like if that's a compelling way to show me something that is pertinent to the story. I don't know if your station is doing drones, but like a really compelling, well shot drone stand up where you're illustrating something with that aerial shot. I mean, that is like so in demand right now. Do you, Jessica, do you guys do drones?
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have any drones.
Okay, we have them, but we've had them for years, and we literally just used it for the first time recently. So, yeah, like think of those tools that are like in demand. Use your GoPro. Use if you have one. Use your smartphone to like shoot some stuff like that. And just like moments of interaction with people where it shows that you're making. I've found that when you're not just like spewing facts into a camera, but making observations about what's around you, that's something people will notice. Like if you're at a scene and you overheard somebody say something kind of profound, be like, hey, in your live shot, say, I just heard a guy talking about this over here and it really sums up the mood here. If you're describing, I don't think we're describing enough the stuff that we see around and relying on our instincts to do that. So that'll help show your personality.
And even if like maybe you're doing a story on something within the street, like even if you're sitting in the driver's seat and you set your camera right outside just for a different setting than having like a field behind you, will catch someone's eye as well. Or maybe even if a quick walk up to the camera, I know it's, a little boring, but it's better than just kind of sitting there and, saying, hey, this is what happened, this is this, and making your content and like your voice inflection compelling while also doing some movement will catch their attention as well. Because if you have a flat voice and you're just standing in front of a stop sign, it's not really going to add much flavor to whatever you're putting on your reel.
Maybe just one more thing, just one more thing, just like think of ways to break the rules. And like, we think of like the way we do our job has to like fit a certain set of standards. And I can't tell you what that's going to look like in your job, but if you think there's like something you have to do every day, break that rule and see what that looks like. Take some risks and you might do something that nobody else has done.
One thing I think she may be struggling with is as an MMJ, you don't have somebody to help you walk and talk and move and show. So how can she do that? I mean, one suggestion I might have is just shoot several stand-ups. Maybe, a couple of them don't work and one will, but, make a creative attempt with a walk, talk, and chew gum type stand-up. And if it works, it works.
If you need some examples, because in this industry, we all borrow ideas. Joe Little out in San Diego, just watch some of his stuff. He's an MMJ out there and literally every other day he does a creative stand-up that blows my mind. So some of these things will be obtainable, but at least, and some of them won't, but at least you can get an idea of what someone is producing as an MMJ. And reach out. I'm sure he'd be able to tell you this is how you do XYZ, but look at as many examples of stand-ups as you can, just to get an idea as to what those different stand-ups could be.
And Ted, you've worked with Joe, I know, on some work.
Yeah, I know Joe pretty well. He does very creative work.
If you
and
just
also
Joe Little, San Diego. In fact, I think
he works at NBC, the NBC station in San Diego, KNSD, I think.
He really does have some good stand-up ideas.
One more thing on that front, like what's big now, and at least in my organization, is like explainers. If you have some type of graphics next to you where you're explaining a kind of complicated topic and there's words coming down next to you, when you're just static, you're standing there, or there's some type of illustration on the side that you can use to explain something financial or whatever, like that's really big. That's really big with us now.
That's done by putting it in during editing. Is that right?
Right. Yes.
In the editing process, you add the graphic, but you have to frame the shot or figure out how to do that. Hey, we're wrapping up here towards the end of the session. I do want to end kind of with some tips that you might be able to share with current students and recent graduates like Jessica and Julian that are out there fighting the good fight every day and thinking about the next jump and do I get an agent? Do I move here? Does that all depend on market size? All that kind of stuff. So let me start first in Michigan. And for your ideas, from what you've learned the few years you've been out of college, Lauren, what tips do you share with somebody who's just getting out of class amid this dangerous environment that makes them stand out?
I think to just always do more. That's what I tell myself every day. Just very simple, just do more. Instead of asking someone if you can help them, do what that thing would be, and then say, hey, I did this for you. If you want it, awesome. If you don't, you don't. Just do more, be that person that people can rely on, be pay very close attention to detail, and just always do more, do the most. And then it's better to do more than to do less and wish you did more.
Is there anything that you would have them put on their resume reel, or anything that you would have them put on their resume that will make them jump out?
I would say, like I said before, just have a wide variety of things. Show these news directors that you can do anything and everything, and that you're willing to just really. It's hard. You don't want to brag about yourself, but brag about yourself. You worked hard. University of Illinois is a great place to learn things. So just really brag about yourself. If you won an award, put that on there. If you did that, just whatever, just brag about yourself, even though I know it's kind of weird and hard.
Trish, you have ideas that are encouraging for this challenged class of 2020?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, don't freak out. I mean, I know it's a struggle looking for jobs now, but you forget that, we need reporters to tell us what's going on. Like, so we're essential workers. So they're going to need to hire someone, whether it's now or in 3 months, because sometimes a lot of those reporters are moving up to anchoring roles. So they're going to have to fill that spot some way or another. And use your contacts. I mean, how many of us are here today? Reach out to us, ask us for hiring, because at the end of the day, this business is all about who you know and how you can get in the door. Once you're in the door, you can prove yourself, like what Lauren said, do the most, and to get that next step that you want. But use your contacts, breathe a little bit, don't freak out too much, because you'll get a job, whether it's, in a couple months or whatever, you'll figure it out. But reach out to everyone, pick your markets that you want to start at, and see if there's any Illinois grads, see if you know someone through a family friend, etc., to just get your resume pulled so the news director can take a look at it and call them up and be like, hey, I'll be there. Can I come in for an interview? It might be a little bit harder now with some traveling restrictions, but really use your contacts and try and reach out to people as much as you can, because that's how you get your foot in the door.
Help me remember here, Ted, you're from Palos Heights. So moving to Reno was right within your comfort zone, right?
It was very uncomfortable. It was the hardest thing I probably had to do in my career. I wrote down a few things that, I was going into this business in 2007, the last time the economy nosedived, and I learned a lot through that. And, I just feel like we're going through that all again, but it's actually worse this time. And so, like Trish said, just like understand it's not you a lot of the time. This is a economic downturn that is without precedent right now. And so it's going to be hard. And that's going to require you to do things that you weren't required to do like 6 months ago. So where did I go? I went to Alaska. I drove my car from Chicago to Anchorage to take that job in 2008 because there was a job there. And it was like, ended up being one of the best moves of my career. And I stayed a lot longer than I thought I would. So like cast an even wider net than you thought you needed. If you want to stay close to home, it's just going to be so hard to do that. So cast a really wide net. Be willing to go somewhere uncomfortable, because you're going to learn a lot when you do that. You're going to learn way more than if you just did something within your comfort zone. Network like crazy. I'm still doing it. I still go to like conferences every year whenever I can travel. If I'm in another city, I try to meet with somebody who I've met along the way to help me, with that. What else? Be a specialist. Like, don't just be a reporter. Like right now, I'm trying to learn all I can about the stock market and stuff, because that's like going to be a giant story for a few years. So like, I'm reading a book about the stock market. I'm trying to learn like how all this stuff works that we're reporting on every day. When you can prove that you understand these things, that's going to set you apart. And then like make yourself like bulletproof, which is like do the jobs that they're going to need. Be an MMJ, do all those skills, get good at that. And when things turn south, they're gonna keep the people on board who can do the most for them. And then like if you want to stand out, I think now on your reel, show that you're holding people accountable and asking like tough questions of people in power. Like that is going to get you noticed, that you're like noticing that there's some discrepancy in something in your community, and that you found the person who needs to be asked that question. Like, and put that in your stories, like show that you are holding people accountable for their decisions, and that will get you noticed. I don't want you guys to be discouraged, because this is like a really important moment for journalism right now, this next few years. The general manager of my station said that he said this is the most important work that this station has ever done right now in its history. And so just know that like we need good journalists right now to help people get through this, because this story is it's only getting bigger actually. And so this is like prime time to get into this business and tell these stories and help people understand what's happening in the world. It's never been more important. So just be persistent and patient, network, be a good person, do good work, and just be willing to do anything.
Yeah, I would echo what Ted said, that, you know, go back to those basics that you learned about ethics, you know, seeking the truth, those things that you may have picked up in the classroom if you actually went to class. Some of those things, this is an extremely important time for journalism. The demand is insatiable from viewers and readers and consumers, especially for stuff that's truthful and affects their life. I don't want to leave you out of this, Aubrey. You've got probably the best tip of all, which is?
No, you know, Ted really summed it up, as did Lauren and Trish. So I would just say, keep your head up, try and apply everywhere, and keep your goals in mind. Like if you want to someday get to Chicago, so I wanted to get to Denver. This was my dream. This was my goal. There are steps to getting there. So first you have to keep your options open, keep your mind open as well to any opportunities that may present themselves, and then work your way to getting to that goal. And over time, your goals and priorities might change, and that's okay. Like I love working in Denver, but I see myself back in Kansas City because I love Kansas City, and that's okay. Right now, it's strange because everything's on pause, but that won't be forever. So keep your head up, keep applying anywhere and everywhere that seems like it might be a good fit for you. And that's that.
Yeah, one thing that came up in the last session was, I think a lot of students go, okay, I'm going to apply for one job in wherever that is, South Bend. And then they put all their hopes in that one job and they don't apply anywhere else.
And that's the thing.
Wrong approach.
Yes. As Ted had mentioned, keep your options open. Apply anywhere, everywhere where that job seems like the right fit. And who knows? Don't just credit anywhere where you go. It might grow on you. You might learn to love it. I never saw myself leaving the state of Illinois. And when I left for Kansas City, it was immediate. Like I was so thankful that I did go there, but I pushed myself outside of my comfort zone in order to do that. And now I'm a more well-rounded person. I have experienced more of the world, and I think you'll benefit from that.
One thing that I was really glad that I did when I was applying is I made a big Excel sheet and I wrote down every station, what city they were in, who they were owned by, and who their news director was, what their news director's email was, if I had talked to them or not, and just really kept track of all 200 something stations that I had applied to. And that's not a joke, actually more than 200. But yeah, it was just really helpful to see it all on an Excel sheet and who I had talked to and who I hadn't, because it's a mess. It's a lot of people that you're talking to. So I would just recommend to keep it all organized. And for all of the students, and especially the class of 2020, my heart absolutely aches for you guys. And I'm just so sorry about, you know, everything that you're going through, obviously, and this isn't the way you anticipated your school year to end. So just know that I think all five of us are just very, very sorry that you're going through this.
Yeah. Thank you very much to all of you today, Ted, Aubrey, Trish, Lauren, for all of that you've contributed and have contributed to the current students and fellow alums, keeping in touch with all of us. I know I talk to some of you once in a while. It's very important that we do that during these times, but my thanks to you. Let's help each other get not only through the tough times, but help these young folks, these youngins, help them get to the next level and achieve their own goals.
ILL.
Thanks again, and ILL. That way,
Thank you, guys.
Bye, you guys.
Thank you.
Yellow.
I'm getting a crew together and I need producers. You in?
Yeah, I'm in.
100% I'm in. Yeah, I'm in. One thing though, I'm already here.
Now we just need anchors.
But who?
We need TV experts.
I know just who to call.
Hello?
Hello? What are you doing this fall?
Anchoring?
Good answer.
What's in it for me?
An opportunity
Opportunity to what?
to tell stories that matter.
And if I say no?
You won't,
How do you know?
because you picked up the phone.
Good morning, Illini.